Robert Thibodeau here, astrologer from the Mayflower bookshop and author of Astrological Aspects the Art and Hermetic Rosicrucian Grail Tarot. Both those books have a lot of esotericism in it and creative ideas for how to live a spiritual life and become an astrologer or psychic, I guess. So a lot of people have been asking me for a little brief on my predictions for the presidential election. And I was left out of the Wall Street Journal when President Trump first ran. I had predicted he'd run and that he'd win. And then after he won, I predicted, and they left me out because they said that everybody was predicting Clinton. All the good astrologers were predicting Clinton. And I kind of live this life of trying to predict upsets because people notice it more. Like the upset of George Bush the first, after he won the Gulf War, and then he was going to win the next election, and I predicted he'd lose. Or that Mayor Young would lose and Mayor Archer would be on and on. O.J. Simpson would walk, earthquakes in Detroit Free Press. There are a lot of articles that someday I should probably get out and I'm living the life and moving in the future, so I rarely get a chance to look back on my poetry and print these articles up. Okay, but I wanted to talk about the fact that I had predicted Trump to win, and then after he won, I predicted to the amazing Clinton people that Mrs. Clinton would not run or she would lose, and that whoever ran against Trump would win. And then I predicted that I've been predicting now for quite a while, and it's around town. I've been predicting that neither President Biden nor ex-President Trump would win the next election. Now, if Trump wins, he's got Jupiter on his sun. It's like incredible, But the whole Trump thing is associated with Neptune at the bottom of the United States chart. I use Sagittarius rising, so when I was predicting some catastrophe could happen in the 9/11 thing, Pluto was on the ascending sign in Sag. And then when Neptune hit the bottom of the chart, of the United States chart, opposing the midheaven, we're having water problems, air problems, breathing problems, weird illnesses, Neptune, toxins in the blood. I mean, the higher side of Neptune is we're becoming spiritual, but we might lose our body. It can be a nice thing, but no, it's not. It's kind of Luciferic. And the harmonic thing is we're stuck in a machine. I talk about that in this other video. So if you don't get what I'm doing, a lot of people have been asking me to put more videos out because I've been doing TikTok and a lot of people don't want to do that, but I've been doing these artistic little short things, and you can find me there. And you can find me in live action at the Mayflower bookshop, or hire me to give a talk in your neighborhood. Okay, so, but I wanted to talk about the fact that I'm predicting that Michelle Obama, if she would run, would win. And I was predicting this for the last few years, So, but I'm predicting that the bigger possibility and tendency, because astrology is the science of possibility, tendency, probability, and there's freedom. Nobody can predict the future because we can change the future. Once it happens, we can only learn from it. We can change. If it hasn't happened yet, we can change it. And to be present and for me to be silent with you, I can tune into you. You can tune into me and what I'm trying to say, and you can hear what I'm really, really trying to share with you from my teachers' teachers, how to meditate and be happy. So one part of us is trying to study the great spiritual literature at the Mayflower bookshop, and Theosophy and Rudolf Steiner and Anthroposophy and Manly Haw and Neoplatonism and Hermetics and magical, pagan, alchemy, Kabbalah, tarot cards, right? It's a lot of fun. It's all American mystic. It's an all-American mystic, which I am. An all-American astrologer, I used to say on the largest radio station in America for years, J.P. McCarthy. So I even mentioned that term on Howard Stern's show in the early days. So I'm trying to just share a couple things with you. Today's July 4th. I hope you're, have discovered the freedom of the heart to flower with anticipation for a better future and a more creative future for all of us and for each one of us. I hope you've discovered the stillness within that can give you genius ideas of what to do out here. So that takes a little work, and I've talked a lot about spirituality and intelligence of metaphysics and meditation in other talks. But it's July 4th, liberty, equality, fraternity. Liberty and freedom of thinking, equality in the heart and justice, and fraternity or brotherhood, sisterhood when it comes to money and economics and sharing food and land. July 5th, there's a new moon. So happy July 4th. July 5th, there's a new moon in Cancer. So there's a challenge to find what will nourish our thinking and our feeling and our willing and our belly and our soul and our spirit and our love life. Friends and family, our earth and bed. What will help create that? And how can we have jobs that don't hurt the planet, that help support a private life, an individual life of freedom, right? Happiness, the pursuit of happiness. Happiness is when we awaken a more co-creative participation and interaction with all of life, that we can help things grow and help weeds disappear and get rid of negativities and transform them into positive. July 8th, Jupiter conjunct Saturn in President Biden's chart. There'll be parts of Biden that do better, but when he has Uranus opposing his sun coming up and Pluto squaring the moon, I think it's probably a mistake for him to run, and I don't think he can win. Now, I know we can outdo astrology. Miracles can happen. Miracles can happen. That we're here talking about it. That's a miracle. That there's not a war taking place right on top of us like in so many places. Shame on war. Shame that we have weapons to destroy and not creativity and love and intelligence to bring peace. We should be very humble. I was on national radio talking about, like, George Bush won the Gulf War. Remember George Bush first? And they had this parade down Wall Street, you know? And I was on the radio saying they should walk in silence and that they're sorry they had to hurt anybody to bring peace. We should have more attitude like that. We should celebrate each other's gifts and our beauty. And, you know, we have to be very humble around negativities that we don't know how to change them. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so July 8th, Jupiter conjunct Saturn. It's going to be a very interesting time. July 15th, the Republican Convention and Mars conjunct Uranus. Oh my God. Mars Uranus during the Republican Convention. I mean, forget the convention. I mean, Mars Uranus is like people shoot them up and that's my dog back there. I don't have friends that grunt in the background. It's my dog. And the dog is representative of the lower mind, and the cat is the lower feelings and emotions. It's the pussy cat. And it's a whole philosophical, okay, forget that. Republican Party, July 15th, 26 Taurus, Mars conjunct Uranus. It could be upsets in sports, the stock market, in things you were planning. Mars Uranus is anger and violence and hatred, but the positive side is heroics and honest truth, no matter what comes from it. Like honest truth. How can we have peaceful protest that give us revelations, not apocalypse? You know what I'm saying? A revelation, not an apocalypse. Okay, I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, and I grew up in Detroit since I was 3.5. You know, the Kundalini 3.5. Then I came here to Detroit. So I've been here the whole time, and I've made some really great friends, you know, Dalai Lama from way back, and a lot of people. We want to make friends with all life. So the moon opposes Uranus on July 16th. So July 15th and 16th, it should be high entertainment. And, but, you know, it is possible that Trump could get a realization or an apocalyptic revelation and, you know, something good or bad could happen. I mean, he's a very hot potato, you know. I'm not predicting him right now. I'm just predicting that we have a psychic civil war. We should have a psychic civil peacemaking and debate. And we should have Robert Kennedy in the debates and Marianne Williamson and people like me. We should have all the people, Chomsky, all the people that want peace and love. They love the earth. We should have all of them in the debate. And maybe we need 3 presidents. We need a triple goddess running the planet. So there's going to be a lot of revelation and hopefully not shocks at the beginning of the Republican convention. And Biden on July 17th has Mars opposed Sun. So, he's going, you notice during the debate he talked too much and too fast. I know you might have noticed that. So they pumped him up on vitamins or something. I don't know. Or he was just too excited like a little kid, and you have too much energy and you spin out because the coffee spun you out or whatever it was. So there's like Mars opposing Sun is peace has, it's not bad to get angry. What's bad is that we don't know we're angry. There's no wisdom and spirituality in these violent people. They think that their violence is going to, God saves the so-called God. There's no God unless you prove it by the way you live. But the last judgment is that we wait to make our judgment till the end. And that when we feel anger and jealousy and possessiveness and comparing and upset, that we just kind of take a couple breaths. We breathe in and we look at our silence and our wish for peace and enlightenment and love. And we try to be humble enough to learn a creative, peaceful way to bring peace. Love brings love. Peace brings peace. Joy brings joy. Happiness brings happiness. Anger and hate and violence breed anger and hate and violence. If we all vote a democracy to destroy each other, okay. But come on. Okay, so let's get back to astrology. So the full moon, July 21st, 29 Capricorn. All the Capricornian plutocrats, Pluto was in Capricorn trying to get into Aquarius. All the plutocrats that rule by money, power, and authority are having the control freaks are having their last heyday. And this full moon is midpoint between Biden's Sun and Pluto moon. There's a T-square going on that affects Biden, President Biden. Now, we might find that he has anger. We might find that he's like upset and that he has he has a transformative spirit, but it might be too late. And here's this Mars-Uranus that takes place in the Republican Party, but President Biden has Mars coming to hit his Uranus July 24th. Mars is coming to conjunct Biden's Uranus. That's a breakthrough or a breakdown. That's losing control or coming to a new revelation that ceases the apocalypse, stops the apocalypse. But it could also be like frustrating storms and weather and physical activities that people do that hurt progress and happiness and liberty and fraternity, the liberty, equality, and the good, true, and beautiful are having a hard time. What's with all this, like the beautiful is cosmetic burial and women taking off all their clothes and guys being weird it's like so weird what's going on. How come? Well, we'll talk about those celebrities and their charts another time. August 18th, Mercury squares Uranus. Uranus is really big at the Republican Party in Biden's chart. The Democratic Convention, Mercury squares Uranus, August 18th. Mercury squared Uranus is the revelation and the free-for-all of who's going to be running for president. And I've been predicting that Marianne Williamson should really be, and Kennedy and all these kind of people that offer a socializing solution. They're not socialists, by the way. They're trying to be social and educate the poor and help the poor. We have people who are greedy rich, and we have people who are too poor, and we have to rebuild the middle class and the working class, and we have to love the earth. And those people who love the earth should have more play and say on who owns the earth. It's a very difficult problem. And so the convention here, the Republican convention looks way wilder than the Democratic one, but the Democratic one could be pretty crazy because full moon is on April 19th. So that full moon is going to, with Venus square Jupiter, a lot of love, but Venus opposing Saturn, a lot of people that don't love, and the Sun squares Uranus on that full moon, and that is more radical. Uranus is a determination to be free. The 3 principles of the path of Tibetan Buddhism are the determination to be free. And how are we free? We're free with our thinking and our feeling and our deep spiritual silence. And we have to be artists and spiritual scientists to be free out here in the outer world. You have to be very smart not to make mistakes and hurt people and have them pissed off at you and make money mistakes. I mean, how do we earn a living that's honest and doesn't hurt the earth? These are big problems. And we need like people like Chomsky and all those wonderful people that think for something that's going to be good for everybody. Truth has to be true for everybody. Goodness has to be true for everybody, not just a tax write-off. How do we educate people to help themselves? So I'm sorry if I'm piping a little bit. So let's get back to astrology. Full moon August 19th, Sun square Uranus, Jupiter square Saturn. Now, you know, in the December solstice of 2000, Jupiter conjuncted Saturn in Aquarius, and this hasn't happened since they were building the great Gothic cathedrals and the Templars were around. And it's a really beautiful aspect for the Aquarian age, the early part of the Aquarian age. And so from the year 2000 to when Jupiter squares Saturn on the full moon of August 19th, think about what's happened these last 4 years. Think about us. Jupiter is like how all of us could be happy, and Saturn is how we can control our little piece of the pie. And Rudolf Steiner thinks that Jupiter and Saturn have to do with the Rosicrucian movement, the symbol of the Rose Cross, that Buddha is the middle way of the heart between the upper and lower, as above, so below, on earth as it is in heaven. The heart. Jesus the Christ is crucified. Our higher self is crucified between the thief and the murderer. The murderer thinks that if you have the book, you own the book, you think you own the knowledge. The murderer thinks that they murder the spirit of universal thinking by selfish thinking and desires and fear. The thief thinks that they own the book, they have the knowledge, right? That's how that goes. The thief thinks if they have gold and money and possessions that they're rich, but they may not be rich with thinking. The thinking wants to control or thinks it's out of control. I mean, it's a problem. And when you become initiated and enlightened, the thinking and the feeling and the willing, the physical, emotional, mental, start to separate, and we're forced to have a fourth way, like Gurdjieff talks about. And Rudolf Steiner, the physical, etheric, and the astral, the fourth way is that I am connected to everything, and I'm free of everything, and freedom of the self. I'm a calm, abiding space, equanimity inside. I am peace. I am stillness that can walk through walls, and we can be connected as friends. And you can do it to everyone, and the plants and the trees. You can take a breath of the world and hear the bell of your own heart ring through the heart of all life and each other. So the Jupiter-Saturn in the year 2000 was the attempt, something happened in 2002 actually, but in I'm making a little mistake here. In 2020, Jupiter conjunct Saturn. 2020, 4 years later. Here we are with Jupiter square. Jupiter's trying to bring about a sociological, spiritual hero and a family of friends where everyone's working together. People don't really work together, you know. People are very selfish. They have their giant house and they control everything. And they don't really, people get out of control because it's too controlled and they get too high or drunk. And we have this crazy Ahrimanic versus Luciferic, too spiritual or too materialistic. And the middle way, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, how to find that middle way that's just perfect for us to be friends in, includes thinking, you know, it includes love and friendship and good works of virtue. It says in every Bible, God is love. Most people have God and not love, or they have love and they've lost their God. God being a virtue that connects us all up to the great oneness. The spirit of creativity is new creative out of freedom, trying to find a harmony and a voice and a part in the play, in the great drama of history and her story, and humanity seeking wholeness creativity, and unity and diversity. Unity and diversity, we're all born equal in the potential for enlightenment. You can be crippled and get enlightened. You can be really hurt and get enlightenment. You can get enlightenment dead. Buddha was in hell and felt sorry for all the other people that suffered so much that the devil kicked him out of hell. Didn't want him there. He was having compassion and being a nice guy. Like devilishness and misery likes company and evil likes company, it's like that. Well, virtue likes virtuous company too, but we have to have our virtues and our wealth reinvested in healing the earth and each other and making friends and happiness. So when we get to the full moon, August 19th, we're looking at a Sun square Uranus. We're looking at Jupiter square Saturn since the 2020 time of the Jupiter conjunct Saturn in Aquarius. And see, the United States is going through this Pluto return for the last few years. Since the Declaration of Independence, Pluto has returned to his place, and so we're all having to deal with the shadow of freedom, the shadow of getting high, the shadow of spirituality where we meditate and go to heaven, but we leave hell behind. And all humanity is connected with each other, and reincarnation and karma, if we were to understand that, reincarnation and karma, we would be healed overnight. We would, like, peace would come to the planet overnight. That's what Blavatsky said. So this is Robert Thibodeau. I'm amazing been doing it a long time, astrologer. I'm an astrologer for Top Gun. All the, I guess Ray Merriman, what he used to call me, celebrity astrologer. And that got caught on in the Free Press, Detroit Free Press, the news, and the radio stations. Because I used to do a lot of really interesting people, one of which was, I think, interesting was Howard Stern, he meditates every day. Claudia Schiffer, at the time supermodel. And what a wonderful person people who want the earth to be a better place, and then they grow out of craziness into beautiful things. And, Billy Gibbons, who reads, the guy's in the Mensa Society. I mean, he's way smarter than meets the eye, for some people. I mean, he's really an amazing guy who studies, There's guys in Kid Rock's band and Eminem's band that study metaphysics. I mean, everywhere you go, you find people who are studying esotericism and Manly Hawes, Secret Teachings of All Ages. Manly Hawes cool, but he doesn't really, you can't quite get initiated with him so easily, And so, he tells you some really important information that if you put it together with Neoplatonism, Rudolf Steiner, Blavatsky, I think that's all I really have to say. I feel the sorrows of the world and the suffering. Buddha teaches about right suffering. And I wanted to talk about astrology here and not get so lost in esotericism. If we didn't have such a materialistic world, we wouldn't have all this metaphysical stuff going on. The metaphysical stuff is like kind of an inner happening and a hippie phenomena of awakening individual psychic intuitive talents for knowing where to be at the right time. I mean, Henry Ford, when I used to do his chart, I was at a really nice party at major Republican thing, and Max Fisher was there, and major politicians, and all the major politicians really, and Henry Ford talked about astrology having this sense of timing, and you could predict things, but he knew that there was a higher octave. Henry Ford the First, by the way, I was doing with Henry Ford the Second, but Henry Ford the First, he was really into theosophy. They all have a bad side and a good side. Our job is to take the best of everyone and put it together in our life, and not to be seduced by pleasures and comforts that put gold bars on our windows and cement us into harmonic funeral homes of pleasure. We need a sobriety of simpleness, common sense of Mark Twain. Rogers. Yeah, Buck Rogers. Emerson, self-reliance. He was friends with Abe Lincoln. Abe Lincoln used to have seances in the White House. I mean, as a younger guy, I was like, this is what's good and all this other esoteric stuff's bad. But really, it's all good next to what's going on these days. So we have, what we're looking forward to is what my friend Ray Merriman, I think he calls it the Great Vortex or so. Saturn and Neptune are going to conjunct at 0 Aries. And so 2025, 26, 27, hopefully it's the end of the world as we know it and the beginning of a new world of spirituality and Aquarian ideals of brotherhood, sisterhood, friendship with all the animals and plants. That the sun isn't going to destroy us, the sun's reacting to our emotions. The weather is a reaction to how we treat the earth. There's a different way of looking at it. We can have science try to figure out how to have peace. I think science has had their turn. When Francis Bacon said the religion had their turn, and now it's science's turn to torture the elements to reveal their secrets. Wow. That's Roger Bacon. No, that was Francis Bacon. Roger Bacon was the guy who reintroduced gunpowder as a weapon almost, and said that give us 100 years or more and we'll rule the world with this. Well, we got all the guns. I think that religion had their turn, science had their turn of torturing the elements to reveal their secrets. And they're kind of losing us, and they're losing the planet. And the people who are running the show with all the guns and big money, I'm not your enemy, I love you. I just don't like what's going on to the planet. Come and help. And so I think science has had their turn. They're kind of destroying the earth. The real science is like what Rudolf Steiner talks about in the origins of natural science and the history of science. He's got a number of talks on it and on social life. And, I think that science has had their turn. And now what's the turn is moms and little kids should run the world. Everybody should serve moms and little kids to educate the future and love the earth and have gardens, and that weapons have to be transformed into garden tools. So okay, so I've said a lot. So I'm saying that the planetary aspects that we're facing these days with Pluto return and the whole problem of economic slavery and servitude and how we're being slaves of our habits and addictions and how we're hooked on our desire and fear and how we don't understand reincarnation and karma, and there's no way we're going to be reincarnated as black or white or yellow or red or this or that, or and that the Tibetans might be right, and some people are going to get trapped in machines. Their souls won't find human bodies anymore because the earth won't promote it. And so then Armin's influence takes over. I mean, there is no devil outside of ignorance and delusion and fear and desire and stupidity, selfishness. There's no devil. And there's no God unless we prove it by the way we live. And so the Tibetans think, some of them, I mean, I've hung out with good and bad Tibetan lamas and good and bad rabbis and good and bad priests and Hindu yogis. Oh my God, they wanted my house, and it was everything I could do not to give up Mayflower and what I was doing and not give it to one of these crazy people. And I got through it. I was trying to learn spiritual knowledge and not get addicted to some spiritual church or practice, end up standing next to Osteen or something with rich suits on and zillion dollar arenas of the theatrics of religion, rather than God has to be put back in the human body and Mother Nature and the Detroit River. Put God back into the Detroit street. And we put God back in every person. And we're going to honor the person because you can't hurt that person because they have God in them. Put Christ back in and Buddha back in to the everyday life, into the food. Hey, that's my dog. Hey, you, what are you doing? My dog was kind of complaining too about the problems of the world. He doesn't like fireworks. The real revelations aren't fireworks that burn up the sky. The real revelations are gardens that reach up high, and all of our virtues and our beautiful, colorful self offers itself up as incense. Each of us is a burning stick of incense. And, do we fragrant the world, or are we making the world a stinky place? The smell of a holy life. Yeah. And you look at some of these theatrics where they've got strippers and crazy alcohol, drug things at the concerts with music and fireworks and toxicity. Is it working? We might need a new music. Is Taylor Swift half of that new music? Is she promoting spectator sports and cheap beer? I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking the question. I think if we all just went into silence and meditated, it'd be... So anyway, if you don't believe anything I said, just pay attention to the fact that you can already guess it. Mr. Trump has rough aspects. Biden has rough aspects. And that we're looking for someone who has aspects that could promote a new world of peace and harmony and joy. Maybe nobody knows what's going to happen, but from a hotshot Arizona badge on my heart of a little light that says I love everyone, a Detroit hero who survived the fire of anger and hatred and the riots in Detroit, who was marching for peace, who hung out with John Sinclair in those crazy days in Ann Arbor. I was at the Free John concert. John Lennon was as close as this telephone videotaping it. These have been crazy times, man. I met the Dalai Lama. I met a lot of spiritual teachers that kind of transformed my life. A guy named Philip Knight, who was into Blavatsky's Secret Doctrine and Neoplatonism. Okay, I shared a lot. I shared a lot in my last talk and this talk because a lot of people have been asking me to do that. People have been asking to write my biography. Like John Lennon, I had a brief encounter where all I did was yell at me that my mouth was lying and that food was no good and that if I'd eat brown rice for 10 days, I'd like know what is good and bad food. And he just yelled at me for a very short spell. And I was afraid to tell anybody. It was like, yes, sir, he's a Beto. I'm going to eat brown rice for 10 days. And then I could never eat meat again. I mean, not everybody has to do that. I met the guy who wrote Sugar Blues, Bill Duffy, later, who turned John and Yoko onto macrobiotics and had a bucket full of John Lennon postcards and letters and artist flying penises. Oh, my God. And he used to come to Mayflower Bookshop a lot. And Misho Kushi would come and teach on macrobiotics. And many teachers of healing arts and astrology and Dane Ruger and hundreds and hundreds of people. Marianne Williamson has given talks at Mayflower Bookshop. Several. And I played music there with band guys and Johnny Evans from the Kid Rock group and Bobby Monteleone, Bob Monteleone, who's in my band, works with me a lot. So I've met a lot of cool people. How do we put those people into action with ourselves? That every one of these people I've met, good and bad people, they all live in my heart. They all live there. And I was very lucky through Gretchen to hook up with a lot of great musicians, that had hit records. And I've been very lucky to meet really cool people all my life. And I think that the reason I meet cool people and get hugs from cool people is I hug all the tough ones. I hug the ugly, the poor, the beat up, the bitchin'. I hug, like Kid Rock gets up there and hugs everybody with his song, but I'm trying to do with metaphysics, to hug everybody up and to inspire you that you're a divine spark in the eternal plan, and that each one of us has a mind and heart for the sunshine that lives within us, that can play out, that don't kill yourself with stupidity and ignorance and delusion and bad food and drugs and bad friends. Try to heal yourself. Yeah, we still got time here. Try to heal yourself up. So I wanted to give you a big shot at how I think. I think the thing you don't see here is me taking hikes in nature and not talking. And you don't see me patiently trying to grow plants and bring them back to life after the deer ate half of them. I've spent a lot of time with Alan York, he was the head of the Biodynamic Association after we hung out for a few years, and learning how to biodynamic garden and farm. And I learned a lot from him, and I shared a lot. I wasn't as smart as I am now, and a year from now I'll be a lot wiser than I am now. I learned about Rudolf Steiner redeemed esoteric Christianity and the Holy Grail, and that's all I want to say. is that if you meet me swimming or gardening, or you come and see me with the flowers at Mayflower, if you could see me come home from a hard day of work and just pick around through books and strumming a guitar every day, looking for a song that could say, I love you in some new way and make you feel good, no matter how beat up you are. I think each of us have to do that. And I think it's not necessary that they have laws and leaders. If we all had a spiritual practice and honored each other's sacred space within, that we put God back in the body, the great goddess back into Mother Nature in our body. I delivered my kids at home. I'm friends with X. Really good friends. And I have a lot of books on delivering your kid at home. So there's no way I can tell you everything, but I wanted to give you a piece of it so I don't have to do that anymore. A lot of people have been asking me to do it, and I'm available for interviews on any topic of the esoteric metaphysical world or religion or spirituality. And I have a lot to say. I've been the astrologer for a lot of politicians. I mean, at one point I was kind of negotiating through a woman by the name of, well, maybe I shouldn't say her name, MF. I used to call her M. And she was friends with the Bushes, Bush Sr., and she was trying to get me hired by George Bush Jr. as an astrologer. And Marianne Williamson told me that I'd be selling my soul to the devil. And I told her that I shouldn't probably be saying this, at the time, but she's friends with everybody. It's not like I'm special, but I don't want to put her on the spot or anything. But I told her when the apostles told Jesus that he couldn't go to the party because the guy who was having the party was the tax collector and he took advantage of people and he was selfish and, misused women and oh my God. And that you can't go there, what would people think? And Jesus says, James, you're already saved. I didn't come for you. Well, I might be here to comfort you, but so my point is that Jesus spent 30 years preparing to be baptized in fire and water. The baptism with water is I feel you. I can feel you. You can feel me, what I'm trying to do, as crazy as I am. The baptism in fire is that I have a mind that can think for itself and be free. I have something inside of me can be free of myself and free of you and free of time and I can see the eternal. I can see the God spark in this holy virgin space in every one of us. Baptized in water and fire. And for 3 years, Jesus, the Christ now, the Christos, Steiner talks about this, from Jesus to Christ. He has a book. I mean, that's kind of like Apollo. That's kind of like, well, I mean, a lot of people would disagree with me, so I'm not going to confuse you, but there's 3 years where the Christos or the Christ consciousness is available. It's available to all of us. Baptized in fire and water. Plato said that the world's soul is crucified in time and space. Crucified meant four-folded. Physical, emotional, mental, in a sense of I am everything, nothing, and a mind. I'm everything connected. I'm no thing of spiritual space, but awakened space, like Buddha. And I have a mind. We're the children. We've inherited a little bit of everything and nothing from our great mother and father, and we have a mind stream continuum. I call it, in my book, Astrological Aspects of the Art, and Hermetic Rosicrucian Grail Tarot. So here's a big piece of me. I'm thinking that, of opening up another Om Cafe vegetarian macrobiotic restaurant and having somebody else help run the Mayflower bookshop and have more of a scene for talks And if you're interested in running a bookstore or owning a bookstore, I can help you start your own bookstore. That'd be fun. And or even vegetarian restaurant. I mean, I gave my friend Nick a lot of ideas when he did the Mayflower sunflower in Ann Arbor. Didn't quite work. He had a lot of overhead, but and then he ran in season, and he had a great run there as Colleen Smiley ran Om Cafe. There's a lot of my friends. Save a Restaurant in Ann Arbor. Those are old friends from way back, you know. Michael Potter at Eden's Foods, who does one of the greatest, and his family running it now, I think a lot, but he kind of behind the scene running it. Eden's Foods has done great service by vegetarian, macrobiotic, well, you know, organic food and farmers. I mean, you got to hand it to Willie Nelson, who I was lucky to meet a little bit. I mean, that he like tried to do an organic. I mean, I'm not indulging in that stuff, but he wants to have organic marijuana. He was I don't know how far he went. He had a company with it, Willie's Weed or something. I don't know. But it's great that all of us keep trying to heal the world, and that we each have a unique view. When we really love each other and connect, see, everything between us is getting blessed. Okay, so I'm talking too much. I wanted to basically say that this is one of the wildest, craziest, most beautiful times in history for elections. Because we're not really at a civil war. We have like God and love. We have truth and love, like fighting for we have like people that are completely convinced they see God or what is going to make the world happy and what's going to make us all happier. But there's too much intolerance and lack of wisdom, of insight into the poor. The poor don't have insight into the rich. We have to convert the rich to spirituality, because the rich people have they don't have an emptiness practice. They have an emptiness that they can never fill, and they can never have enough money and pleasure and drugs and alcohol and food and bigger houses and more houses and airplanes and pollution. And they know not what they do. Jesus Christ is on the cross, and he says, Father, the oneness. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. They're crucifying the Son of God, supposedly. And the Son of God, the Jesus the Christ, is on the cross. Actually, it's our spiritual soul that's on the fourfold directions of the Native American Indians, right? The physical, etheric, astral, and the ego that's trapped in the physical, etheric, astral, you know. And then how do we identify with the higher Trinity that transforms our thinking into spiritual thinking, our healing into universal love, our every action into virtuous right action? How do we do that? Buddha talks about the Four Noble Truths, right? So we're at the most exciting time we've ever been in, where the past is trying to transform into wisdom, or it's the dead trying to vampire Frankenstein. Remember Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein? She was married to the poet Shelley. Frankenstein was a warning of Ahrimanic monsters of science turning on us. Okay, so I have to go so I can post this. And Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Forgive me. Forgive me for trying to help the whole world be a happier place. We all make mistakes. The only difference between any of us is how quick we see it was a mistake and how quick we fix it. When we fall off the horse of spiritual instruction and learning, how fast can we get back on? I dare you to read The Voice of the Silence by Blavatsky and Herkita Theosophy and try to put it in modern language. I dare you to read Rudolf Steiner's Foundation Stone Meditation, 4 parts of it. I talk about it in my book, Astrological Aspects, the Art. I dare you to read Rudolf Steiner's Foundation Stone, his first class lessons, his outline of occult science. Hitler tried to steal ideas from some of these spiritual people and failed. The swastika was an ancient symbol of the vortex of Kundalini, but it went both ways, right? Hitler went the incarnational way, but he didn't go the way that came into spirituality arising. I mean, these are really deep subjects. There is no such thing as evil symbols. They're stupid sometimes. They're misinterpreted. They're misunderstood. If you're an all-American mystic and an all-American astrologer like me, you're trying to use everything you can to make a better party happen. I mean, isn't that what Kid Rock's trying to do? I mean, he's doing it pretty crudely and roughly, I get it. Or Eminem, they're trying to bitch about all the negative stuff, that they see, and they're angry. But we need solutions that have resolutions and peacemaking and upliftment to the poorest and bringing the high down. We can't just pour money on things. We can't just give people food and rip them off. I know people that are bought with just food and a little bit of money, How do we stay free? I think the only way to stay free is meditate. I mean, can you have a brilliant meditation or a sleep or a near-death experience or an orgasmic, ecstatic second where you can pray and meditate that you're going to get enlightenment and you're going to bless everyone who suffers? I mean, how do we do that in the midst of our suffering and our pleasure? So I tried to do some spiritual. I think the way that I try to work is I'm giving you some real knowledge that if you look at it, you can write down certain things that are kind of cool. Astrological insights that very few astrologers, I can only talk to a few that really understand. There's only a couple of us that are predictive astrologers. I talked to a lady the other day, she's an event astrologer, and she told me she's really brilliant actually, and she told me she wasn't into predictive astrology, but I think event astrology, you're trying to tell a person when the best time is where they can get an operation or they can start a business. Yeah, I do that. And you look at the astrological planets, if it's going to be compatible or you're going to end up fighting, and warring with each other later. I mean, you can look at your astrological charts, compare it, and at the time of a beginning of a business, whether it's going to be successful or not, or whether the thing you're investing in is going to be successful or not. When are the good and bad times? I mean, that's what Henry Ford was into. When are the good times? When are the bad times? And how do you avoid the negativities and take advantage of the positives that they're good for everybody? And we're not just slowly, we think we're finding security and making more money, but we're bricking ourselves in to a trap. How can we have knowledge that frees our mind and our love and our heart and our activities? How can we go to a football game where nobody's hurt and all it is health food? I mean, on WJR radio, with the #1 show in America at the time, that I'd quit Howard Stern to go be part of, because that's another story. I talked about, let's transform most of the sports coliseums into healing gardens and organic food places. We might have to do that. Let's transform the weapons of war into gardening tools. Let's spend at least half the money that we spend on war and making more money on educating the poor, not educating them so they could be corporate whores. I mean, there's good people working in corporations, let's get that right. I'm just saying that somehow the leadership needs to redirect the boat, because otherwise it's heading for a cliff and a titanic wipeout. A giant balloon is going to crash. And how do we pour ourselves back? At least we can do is pour ourselves back in a silent meditation, 3 minutes a day, of listening with our heart to the distillation of our experience and to the world conception that I painfully struggled to share with you. And H.P. Blavatsky did in her Isis Unveiled and Secret Doctrine, that Einstein read, and Martin Luther King and Gandhi and Dane Ruger. He was a Theosophist. I met him at the 100-year celebration of the Theosophical Society. Did you know that? And that's where we became friends, and he stayed at my house. He was like the #1 astrologer for a long time, who influenced Sir Royal and Robert Hand, many of them. Michael Earlywine, a lot of great astrologers have tried, and we've all kind of failed, but we've all succeeded to a certain extent. So I give you my love, and good luck. We're all going to need it. And I have a stillness that radiates love to you wherever you are. I'll see you later. Mayflowerbookshop.com at your higher self service.